In the United States, 116,000 people are on the organ transplant list waiting for a life-saving procedure. And every day, 21 Americans will die waiting on this list, and about one person will be added every 10 minutes. Organ donation is a very important topic and one that needs to be discussed more. To gain a better understanding on the real-life effects of organ donation, I spoke to Mike Mezek, a living kidney donor, and April Miles, who received a liver from a deceased donor.
My experience with donation was totally random. I had very little interest in it, and while I had it on my driver's license, I never really thought about it, never really planned to do it. And then at Thanksgiving 2016, one of the people at the Thanksgiving dinner, I was in Baltimore, was the mother-in-law of my daughter, Dana, and she had gone through complete kidney failure. And I can remember thinking at Thanksgiving how tough that would be to go through something like that. We came back to Columbus afterwards, and I thought about offering to help her, which I did. And she, by early February, I was starting to have lab tests and blood tests and all the medical kinds of stuff. And that went until the middle of May, when the people at the University of Maryland Medical Center basically said, hey, you're good to go, you're a match, we can do this if you want to do it. And we did the kidney donation on Monday, July 17th.
So I was diagnosed when I was 8 weeks old with a liver disease known as biliary atresia. Biliary atresia is when you're born without complete bile ducts in your liver. Most people with biliary atresia either pass away or need a liver transplant by the time they're 5. So I made it to 25 and I'd already had my 2 kids, and so my liver just started to decline pretty quickly right after I turned 23. And I got listed for a transplant in 2016, January 2016, and I got my transplant January 2017.
I'm not sure it's changed my perspective all of that much, except that, you know, you do think about things like donation, and you realize they're kind of a good thing to do, okay? But it got hit home to me, though, because I knew that I knew my recipient, and I knew that she was kind of in a jam medically. But before I agreed to do this, and after they told me I was a match, I got a hold of 3 doctors that I know and trust here in Columbus. One's my brother, one's my primary care physician, and I talked with them all independently about this. I basically said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, and they're telling me I'm a match, you know, what do you think? And every one of them said to me independently, they basically said, you have no idea what this will mean to the recipient. So, you know, in terms of life, what that said to me is, you know, I kind of knew anecdotally and intellectually this is going to be a good thing, but really deep down in my soul, I really don't know. And I'm not a big money or gifts kind of person, but this is something that I could give that's like really good for another person, and that in and of itself is reward enough.
Being able to live because someone else chose to give life to me and be an organ donor, it impacts every single thing I do now. You know, and just playing with my kids, I think I wouldn't be able to do this if it weren't for organ donors, if it weren't for the program, if it weren't for the doctors and the nurses, if it especially weren't for my donor and his family. I think about it all the time, and it really helps me gain perspective on what's important and, you know, what is just a small issue. You know, now a lot of things just don't bother me anymore because I'm not dying waiting for an organ. I'm living my life, and it's because someone was kind enough to give me the gift.
What we'd say to the donor family, and in fact it's something that we did say because we knew the recipient, okay? But then that afternoon when the whole thing was over, I told her son, I said, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. You know, we don't have any misgivings, second givings, reservations, and maybe that was because it all went so well. But the bottom line is it was something we were happy to be able to do, and we would do it again in a heartbeat. Just that simple.
If I could speak to Travis, my donor, I would just, first give him a big hug and just tell him and his family, that I'm grateful every day. And when someone you love dies, the first thing you want is for them to always be remembered. And organ donation is a beautiful way to make that happen. I think about Travis every day. I wear a necklace that reminds me of him. I tell people about him. I have a picture of him on my phone. His life was more than being my organ donor. His life was meaningful, and that I just am so grateful. I will never be able to fully express him saving me.
First and foremost, I do believe that it's kind of a personal decision, okay? And so you have to get very, very comfortable with what you're doing and why you're doing it for yourself, okay? Because it is major surgery, and it's a big deal. End of the day, to me, it was nowhere near as big a deal as I thought it was going to be, in terms of discomfort and pain and all the bad stuff that you associate with major surgery. So what I would tell people is, if they're at all inclined to consider this, think about it, because like a lot of things in life, it's probably not going to be as bad as what you might think.
I tell people who are hesitant to really get their facts correct. Make sure you're looking at the right resources. Talk to somebody whose life has been saved from an organ donation. And also think about if it was your best friend or your sister or brother or mom or dad or you who needed an organ. Would you be willing to take a heart, let's say, if you needed one? If you were going to die without one, would you take a donor's heart? Because if you're willing to take, because if you don't, you will die, then you should be willing to give. And there's like a 2%, only 2% of deaths result in organ donation. People die a way that makes it so they can donate their organs. So there's a huge organ shortage just based on that and the fact that not enough people are registered. So think, if you needed an organ, if you would take it for your family, for your friends, then you should be willing to give just as quick. And it's a one-time decision. You go to that DMV, they ask you if you want to be an organ donor, say yes, check the box, and then move on with your life and take good care of yourself.
Is that at the end of the day, it's a much more straightforward process. It was a much easier process than I ever dreamed. Transplant donations, particularly kidney, have been done now for like over 50 years, for a long time. So if you're comfortable with the medical team, and if you're comfortable with the facility and where you're having it done, the medical phrase that doctors used with me, there should be no reason for any undue anxiety. Are you going to be anxious? Sure, but it's not that unlike a lot of life situations that you get into where you've never gone through something before.
So if I could say anything else on the topic, it would be to think about someone like me or someone that has needed an organ and has received one, just how different their life is after, and how grateful they are, and how they have such a good perspective. This time last year, the doctors told me that they were out of options. And so I was spending my Christmas night, after I put my kids to bed, writing letters for them to read as they got older, because I wouldn't be here. And I wrote things for my husband and my parents and my friends, and I got my affairs in order at 25 years old, because I was not going to live without a donor. And I'd already been waiting a year, and I was in the hospital more than I was out of it. I missed most of my younger son's baby stages and stuff, from just being so sick in the hospital, and I would just cry, just hoping that I could just come home one more time, And now I get to go on trips with my kids and take them to the park, and I've never been able to chase my kids or play or do anything like that, even when I was healthy, because I still had that liver disease. I get to live a whole new life. And, it's unfortunate that my donor Travis passed away, and I'm never grateful that he passed away. I'm only grateful that he gave life by being an organ donor.
Although the choice to become an organ donor is one that is very personal, I hope this video gave you a new understanding of the life-changing capability donation has, and has inspired you to update your status as a donor. To add your name to the registry or to learn more, please visit lifelineofohio.org. Thank you for your time, and I hope you make the life-saving choice of becoming an eye, organ, and tissue donor.